As coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmets, casket is got. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Tick your tech. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
FantasyFling with DFS Army, doing a little cash lineup review. This is something we like to do for a couple reasons. Number one, we have to study past lineups to see what's working and what we can do to improve. Maybe even when you're winning, where you are making mistakes and finding leaks in your game. And secondly, a little bit for credibility. So can't really give cash lineup out if I'm not winning cash games at all. So that's something that we want to take a look at. So kind of want to start with the process a little bit and just see where, the cash chalkboard, for example, got it right, where it may have got it wrong. Areas where we could have identified some good chalk, some bad chalk. So this is kind of part of our process over at DFS Army. If you are a DFS Army VIP, you have access to this. Go to the chalkboard and look, what quarterbacks are popping, what running backs are projected for high ownership, wide receivers, tight ends, and, who projects well, what kind of matchups do they have? Is this good chalk? Is this bad chalk? So, for example, Burrow ended up being pretty high owned, but in a lot of ways for cash games, his floor was non-existent with the injury. So, wasn't a cash game quarterback for me, was obviously a GPP play because he did project well this week going against Arizona. So, but typically not going to be a cash game play, but end up, I think, having a lot of ownership in tournaments. But as we'll see here a little bit, he actually was like 1% owned in the double up. So, most of the field got this one right. Now, like Tua, Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, these guys were all in good spots. Obviously, these were your cash game quarterbacks for the most part. If you played Anthony Richardson, you got burned, and it probably had nothing to do with Anthony Richardson play, specifically just the fact that he seems to get hurt a lot. At running back, it was pretty well spelled out for you. David Montgomery was the top play on the slate. Devon Achane, I can't say his name. I don't know. He was the second highest projected play, one of the highest projected plays, but as far as ownership, the second highest. And, it was kind of fade at your own risk with that type of ownership. That's kind of why we want to see the chalkboard, because you got a team like Miami who had a 30-point implied team total, and you get this guy who's just a beast, can take it to the house on any play. He has a high projection and he's high owned, pretty good fantasy points per dollar. You could see why it could be dangerous to fade a guy like this. So specifically in cash games. Now, Bijan, he didn't get there, didn't have the volume. Luckily, he got a touchdown at the end of the day, kind of saved it. But yeah, these were some of the better plays. And, we obviously know who smashed, who didn't. Breece Hall was a play that we were on at DFS Army, and he ended up being quite a bit higher on than we thought. And it was just kind of a gut play with what the coaches were saying, the matchup. We didn't really care in this instance at his price what the field was doing because, we thought he would gash the Broncos, and of course he did. Now, wide receiver, it was either you played Jamar Chase or Tyreek Hill, or you didn't cash. So we're going to take a look at that. If you play Justin Jefferson, well, he got hurt, so not entirely on you, but he would have had to a score, closer to, it would have had to have been over 25 points really to cash, because Jamar Chase scored 55 and Tyreek Hill scored over 30. So And then Wandale, Marquise Brown, these were kind of value guys. Wandale didn't get there, but most of the field played him, and he still hit 2x, so it didn't really hurt you. And then Marquise Brown smashed at his salary. These are some of the value guys you kind of had to identify, and ended up being the chalk. And then over at tight end, Kelsey, Laporta, Ertz. These were really the plays, and it was pretty well spelled out for you on the chalkboard. So kind of my cheat sheet here. This is something that's, if you're a DFS Army VIP, you have access to this. If you are not and you want to get in on all the tools, the coach's notes, the domination station, the chalkboard, use code FantasyFling for 10% off a VIP subscription. So Patrick Mahomes, he was the top play on the slate for me. Didn't get there as far as the, finishing the top play. Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow obviously were up there, but Jalen Hurts having the floor to be your cash game quarterback. And then core play for me, David Montgomery. He certainly had a good game. Should have looked like it would have been a lot better game than it was. But he was the top play and really pretty well spelled out for you. Obviously, James, if you play James Conner, he got hurt. You can't really do anything about that. But Breece Hall, Devin Achon, David Montgomery, and then the top plays at wide receiver, Jefferson, Hill, AJ Brown, Chase. We got the couple of value plays there, Khalif Raymond as well. Laporta and Ertz are really what would have made the difference to hit that cash lineup. So we're going to go over, and obviously we do FanDuel as well. So if you're a FanDuel player, we have a chalkboard for that actually on this side. And then, the cheat sheet also includes FanDuel plays. So something to keep in mind for those FanDuel players. So I did a couple different lineups this week. And the reason why is I kind of wanted to show that there's more than one lineup to cash. So in cash games, you are really just trying to beat 50% of the field. There's often a couple decision points, and there's more than one way to go with it and still be successful in cash. Now, this was my top lineup that I played. This was the first go round that I did. And I was like, you know what, let's make a Mahomes lineup. Let's see how that looks a little different, kind of the decision points you come to. Now, I spent all $50,000 salary as I normally do. This was a Jalen Hurts lineup, so 8K. And I did the Khalif Raymond, Wandale Robinson. So, I had a couple punts in there, and I paid up at tight end. So this was kind of the decision point. Do I want to play Laporta, or do I want to play Ertz? And really, I liked them both. And more times than not, I will not pay up for a tight end. But this was kind of a special situation because Amon-Ra, the sun god, was out. So we knew Laporta was going to see some extra targets in the middle of the field in the red zone. And that's what he got. He got 2 receiving touchdowns, 3 catches, 47 yards, and smashed for a tight end. So that's kind of unique pay up option. And, doing that, I couldn't afford Patrick Mahomes in that lineup. I couldn't afford Tyreek Hill because Laporta was 5,000 versus Ertz, who was like 3,400. So this brought me down to Jamar Chase, which it actually ended up even working out better because he smashed. He was in a great spot with T. Higgins out. And that's kind of something you want in your cash games. Like, you want wide receivers specifically who are going to get a lot of targets. And anytime they're maybe getting more elevated targets, you like that even better. And when the matchup is right, that is something that you're going to target every time. So Jamar Chase. And then, like we said, David Montgomery was a core play. Devon Achane, A-Chain, whatever. Whatever he's going to change his name to. I don't know. Little side note on that. I'm like, we were drafting this guy all offseason in best ball, in dynasty, and we learned to say his name one way, and then we find out that we've been saying it wrong the whole time. How does this happen? I don't get it. But nonetheless, he was a great play. And then Bijan Robinson was one of those great plays, good projection, good matchup, just didn't work out. But he still got double-digit points, and this lineup easily hit the cash line at 183 points. And this was in the single entry of $5 double up. Now, one thing to note, you want to attack single entry tournaments, head-to-head or double ups and 50-50s. Do not do the mass multi-entry because the cash line to that is way harder to hit. Now, it's certainly this would have hit the cash line in these tournaments, but the next lineup I don't think would have hit the cash line in those, because the reason being is you have real sharks, cash sharks, who will just mass multi-enter these, and it's going to make the cash line much harder to hit. So yeah, let's go ahead and look at the $25 double up real quick that I did. So like I said, I don't think this lineup would have hit the cash line actually in the mass multi-entry 50-50. So just keep that in mind. Patrick Mahomes, this was, like I said, he was a little more expensive than Hurts, a couple hundred. And I didn't play Laporta in this lineup. So it was really, if you were going to play, it was a 2v2 versus, Jamar Chase and Laporta versus like Tyreek Hill and Zach Ertz. I like Tyreek Hill more just because what we had seen from Burrow this year, just being injured, just not being himself. And I felt like this was just a much better path to the cash lineup, playing Tyreek Hill in a game where they had a 30-point team total and they hit it pretty easily. They definitely could have got more, and especially if Tua didn't throw a couple picks. So Tyreek Hill, I was more comfortable playing, even though I had that Jamar Chase lineup. And Zach Ertz, what I liked about Ertz is he didn't break my rule of no tight end over 4,000 in cash games. So like I said, the Laporta situation was kind of unique, but normally this is what we're going to do in cash games. We're going to pay down at tight end, pay down at defense, and we're going to pay up for floor. Mahomes, he didn't have his best game, still scored 19 points. That's what we're talking about with floor. Joe Burrow, for example, yeah, he had a great game this week, but last week, the week before, to start the year, he had a couple games like 5 points. That is not floor that you need in cash games. You don't want a lot of variance. You want high floor players in good spots, eat all the good chalk you can. And that's what we did with David Montgomery, 78% owned. He was a core play. Breece Hall, we thought was a great play because of the matchup, actually ended up being chalk. So, we weren't the only ones that thought that. Josh Reynolds is a guy that I added kind of last minute once I saw he was active, because I figured he would get the bulk of the targets with Amon-Ra out, and he smashed, obviously had a touchdown, 17 points. Wan'Dale Robinson, we talked about him being a core play just because of his price. He 2X, didn't matter. Even if you had him and he only got 6 points, well, he was 3,000 and 61% of the field played him. So he's basically a free square. It didn't matter. Zach Ertz, like I said, Bijan and the Titans Z. So 156 points that hit the cash line, and really just kind of want to show something real quick. This line, let's see, 52. In fact, let's go here. So this person didn't quite double up because it was a $5, so they kind of min cashed, and really want to show the difference between cashing this week and not cashing this week. Sometimes, and this is a min cash line, obviously, but sometimes it's just bad luck, right? So this is a good cash lineup. You got Patrick Mahomes, David Montgomery, Alvin Kamara, Jamar Chase, Khalif Raymond. So very similar to the lineup that I had. Pay down at tight end. Got some good value guys, some stud, getting good volume, high floor. But the difference is Justin Jefferson just didn't get there. Well, he also got hurt. So that had a lot to do with it. If Justin Jefferson doesn't get hurt, this lineup probably hits the cash line for Mog Andrew. So just keep that in mind. I think that's going to do it for this week. Like I said, if you are a DFS Army VIP, you have access to all this stuff. If you're not, join us now. Use code FantasyFling for 10% off a VIP subscription. We've cashed 5 out of 5 weeks this year. And then pay attention, as I will be dropping the Millie Maker review tonight. So keep a lookout for that. That's something I like to do. Look at the Millie Maker, what won the Millie Maker, a little bit of MME strategy, and then just overall weekend review for tournaments. So I think that's going to do it. We will see you later.